Hey,
Oh,
John.
look at you! Look at you with that thing.
So,
That's
this is my Jude Law Dumbledore hat.
that's that. Yes, I recognize it immediately. I know you don't like to watch films to understand them, which I can. I told that to my wife, and she says, "Oh, what a blessing not to enjoy screened images." That's like being. It's like I'm. I don't know if I really am,
I
but
think,
I like to
I
say
think,
I say I'm lactose intolerant because I really have a first reaction to cheese and milk and this kind of thing. And people have said to me, "Oh, wow, if I could go through life without cheese, uh, everything would be better." And I said, "Yeah, yeah, that's a blessing." But to not be a film person, of
uh,
course, it makes
I,
it hard. It makes it hard to do screenplays.
but it's a whole facet of life that most people enjoy that I just can't get the same kind of pleasure out of. So I feel it as a loss, really. And I enjoy the spectacle. I love a good car chase, but trying to follow a plot, my brain just doesn't work that way. My brain likes to go off on flights of fancy too frequently. So with a book, you can pause while your brain does funny things and then carry on. But with a film, if you'd asked me what happened when I finished watching um, Fantastic Beasts 3, I don't know what kind of a summary I could have given you. I had no idea what was going on. None.
Well, I watched the film last night all the way through for the first time. And I was very much taken aback. I kept thinking to myself, this is where Nick would say, huh? What? Where did we go? You know, um, really, I should say straight up. I've said plenty of unkind things about the Davids, David Yates and David Heyman, and how they butcher Rowling's shooting script, original screenplay, whatever you want to call it. Uh, and I stand by those things. They have their formula, they have the dress they try to put the woman into, and I think that history will judge that as one of the great crimes. Well, let's. While I was watching the film, I thought, well, let's give credit where credit's due. These are wonderful films. They're beautiful films. Um, Now, was it all done with artificial intelligence? I confess it was. I guess this was before the age, really, of artificial intelligence, but CGI, I guess, is.
It was CGI, and much more than the original Harry Potter films. The original Harry Potter films, I understand, were unusual in that so many of the effects were physical. They were puppets, they were mannequins, they were working on a physical set. Whereas you can see in this film, so much of it is really well generated, but computer generated.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a mountains kind of person. I really, my wife is an ocean kind of person. She grew up in the Mediterranean. I grew up in the mountains of Pennsylvania. I like big views, and I like, things in the distance, lots of trees. Um, and this film was right to my heart. I mean, you can't get that from the script. Just constant vistas, constant elevation things. Um, but I thought to myself, it's not real. This is all computers. This is not the genius of the director.
Just
Showing, okay, I want this.
just because it's happening inside your head, John, doesn't mean it's not real.
I guess so. But when you see John Ford's The Searchers, which some say is the greatest film ever made, he's in Monument Valley in the American Southwest, and it makes a difference, Nick. It makes a difference. You see John Wayne on a horse against this backdrop, and you're like, "Wow, that's heroic. That's archetypal. That's powerful. You get a real sense of man's place inside creation." You know, all the CGI of this thing was like, okay. But again, a story. It was a beautiful film. I was engaged. Of course, I knew the players and things like that. But anybody coming on this film cold, or anybody coming to it without having really studied the first two films, because they were also a dog mess. They were just all over all these things without connections inside them. For example, just one example. There's a scene in. Wait a minute. I'll come back to this. Nick, what are we doing here?
Yeah, so people may have arrived at this video. People may have arrived at this video from a Google search and have no idea what we are doing. Yes, we are talking about Fantastic Beasts 3: Secrets of Dumbledore, and we're doing it in celebration of J.K. Rowling's 60th birthday, which is coming up at the end of this month, 31st of July. Now, the 60th birthday has a special place in Japanese society. It's called the Kanreki. They use the Chinese astrological symbols. There are 12 of them to denote your birth year, and also the 5 Eastern elements. Their calendar cycles through the 12 astrological signs and the 5 elements to make up
12 astrological animals, not astrological signs. That's Western, etc.
It's my Western mindset, John. They cycle through those animals and those elements to come up with a calendar of 60 years. So when you reach your 60th birthday, you have arrived at the point in the calendar at which you come in, and you've completed your cycle, and you are ready for a rebirth. And this celebration is called the Kanreki.
Full life.
And it's a big deal. So J.K. Rowling was born in the year of the wood snake. I was born in the year of the metal dog. And when I reach my 60th birthday, it will again be the year of the metal dog, and I would have completed my calendar. The way we're celebrating J.K. Rowling's Kanreki is we are making a lake and shed interpretation of each of her published works, all written by J.K. Rowling, a few of which weren't written by J.K. Rowling, but have got her name on the cover. And what we mean by lake and shed is we're using J.K. Rowling's metaphor for her creative process. And her metaphor envisages a lake in which she is handed her raw ideas, and these come from her subconscious. They are her unresolved issues, all the things that have been bubbling around in her life and the books she's read. She takes those ideas, a little bit like molten glass, and she goes to her shed where she works on them. John's in his shed over in
meaning. Yeah. I mean, basically, inspiration is the lake, core beliefs, books she's read, unresolved issues. That's the unconscious stuff.
Yeah.
Come to the shed, and it's conscious work time. Just like you take inspiration from that beautiful view you have there, of that drowning man sign, and you feel your heart soar, and you have a thought, you're inspired. And then you take that thought into the shed and you say, okay, let's do the Hephaestus thing, the Vulcan thing, and pound this sucker into a story, which is not just your psychological detritus, but your depictive psychology, let's say. This is where you exteriorize in story the interior life of human beings. They call that psychomachia, the soul thing, or literary alchemy, where you show the soul's transformation of soul and spirit. You do the structure of chiasmus to bring us to the story center and the heart, that secret place, and you fill it up with all these golden threads that you like to touchstones mark through this stuff, and the bad dads, the divine mom, and you put that into your story, alembic, ta-da, lake in the shed. And so we're marching right to the end here. We just finished 2 Christmas pigs, and because there were 2 Christmas pigs, right? That was a natural. Yeah. Now we're going through the last 2 Cormoran Strike novels that we have, Ink Black Heart and Running Grave. And though Rowling doesn't count these on her list of books, we learned in 2020. We've done Cursed Child, and we've talked about the first 2 Fantastic Beast franchise film scripts. But this one, Nick, Um, very different.
Yes.
And you want to give us some context about what was
Sure.
going on at the time? It might explain
Yeah.
why this book is so different.
So if you've watched our previous episodes, you will know that Rowling has come out as Team Gender Critical, Team TERF, and this has received a lot of negative press attention. At this point in her story, it's received a huge amount of celebrity pushback, um, and a lot of online vitriol. Um, and this is worrying the guys at Warner's. On the back of that, we've got 4 receipts from the first 2 films. They made money. Yeah, they these are not loss-making films. They've made, and they continue to make money, but they were not the big corporate pillars that they expected them to be. They achieved nothing like the Harry Potter amount of receipts, particularly in their key market. And but for Warner Brothers and all the big studios, the key market is not actually where they get the most of their money, but it's the one that's politically important for American filmmaking, and that's the US box office. If you look at the European and the Far East box office for the first 2 Fantastic Beasts, they did a lot better in comparison to competitive films than they did in the US. But the US is where they generate their press publicity. That's where they get the majority of their Rotten Tomatoes score, and that's where the critics judge, has this film been successful or not. Fantastic Beasts 1, it was, it was had decent scores in terms of reviews. People were on the fence. Fantastic Beasts 2, 4 receipts in the US box office, poor reviews. So Warner Brothers had emergency meetings. What can we do to save this? And what they effectively did, and they must have brought, or they must have gone to. You don't bring in J.K. Rowling. They must have gone to J.K. Rowling and had a face to face. Essentially, it's no longer script written by J.K. Rowling, with the assistance of Steve Kloves as a producer credit. This is Steve Kloves' script based on a screenplay by J.K. Rowling. So J.K. Rowling essentially no longer gets a writer's credit for this film. Now, we suspected that there was a lot of studio pressure to get changes to script on Fantastic Beasts 1 and 2. We know that there were a lot of further changes in terms of editorial decisions and what scenes got cut. In this film, she's a stage further back. So you can, still on YouTube, you can check out the footage of the premiere for this film that J.K. Rowling attended. And it was a bizarre appearance from J.K. Rowling.
Shuffle her off the stage.
Separated from the actors. They had the weird appearance of the actress that plays Tina, who seemed to be sort of smuggled in the front door and was carefully managed. We know she was one of the most outspoken critics of J.K. Rowling's gender standing. So this, in terms of the politics of the set, what it must have been like filming in Leavesden, although nobody's written their memoirs yet, but this was a troubled movie from the start. And Leavesden, actually, in terms of the Harry Potter franchise, to include Fantastic Beasts, because the crew was exactly the same. It was in the same location, the same studios. They had the same creative teams. It's the same guys. Through the Harry Potter franchise, and at least the first Fantastic Beasts, everyone is saying in all of the publicity interviews what a pleasure it is to work on a film set that had no big egos. Hello, Johnny Depp. That had no no issues in terms of misogynistic harassment. That everyone was friendly with everyone else. It's a set that's set up to have kids on there. Now, you know, they didn't have any child stars anymore. They didn't need to have their own school, but they had the same philosophy of a safe shooting experience. That must have changed dramatically for the last film. All of that good feeling must have gone. And you know, again, maybe we're going to have to wait another 10 years for people to start writing their ghost written memoirs, but I'm sure there's lots of stories there to be told.
What about the guy? The man who plays Aurelius Dumbledore, Credence Barebones?
Yes,
he was.
So this was, and this sort of kicked off
Ezra Miller.
Writers,
Ezra.
Ezra. Just as the filming was finishing, and as the publicity cycle started up for Secrets of Dumbledore, there were some further really bad publicity of bad behavior by Ezra. So there was some violent altercation in Iceland. There were some bad stories of his interaction with young fans, a whole hot mess.
The film seemed cursed. Now, when you have the author who, when the first and second films came out, the author did appearances, say in New York at the Today Show, where she appeared with the four principals, you know, the Goldstein sisters and Credence, and Eddie Redmayne, Newt, and certainly Jacob Kowalski, and they fawn over her. They're clearly just idolizing her. They arranged the interview so that they're surrounding her. She's the center, and every question that's asked, they all turn to hear what she has to say. They couldn't be more respectful and admiring than they were of her. After she comes out and says, no, trans rights do not trump women's rights, and certainly we shouldn't be transitioning, we shouldn't be doing chemical castrations and surgical mutilations of adolescents, many of whom are on the autistic spectrum, and this thing. We shouldn't be rushing into that. When she takes that heroic stand again, for humanity, they butcher her. I mean, they say no. Trans women are women. They do the stuff.
Yes.
Now, as you say, that can't have been pretty. Certainly, it wasn't pretty at the premiere. And who knows? She must have been absent from Leibston. Again, as you point out, it says. I mean, this is. I keep showing this cover because it's fascinating here. For the first time, it says the complete screenplay.
Yeah.
The first two books, it says the original screenplay. I howled each time that happened, saying, we know that's not the case.
No.
The original screenplay had to have been the shooting script, and that's what we don't have.
Yes.
This is simply the transcription from the film. I mean, there's almost nothing in here. And this book has what I'm almost certain are AI-generated pictures and some Mina Lima sort of books and drawings. But it also has little comment boxes by people like Eddie Redmayne and stuff that are.
But interestingly, although they've got some depiction of Mina Lima artwork that they did for the shooting, the book itself is not designed by Mina Lima, so it is clearly not in the same series as the scripts we get for Fantastic Beasts 1 and 2. This is a clear break.
You put this on the shelf, and it's so visual. It's like the hardbacks of the Corman Strike series. You have three that are in black. You have Lethal White, which is in a really clear white. and then you have an entirely different formatting and thing for the next 3 books. So when you see it on the shelf, you have 3, 1, 3. You see the 7 books. I mean, it's a neat thing. You see Fantastic Beasts on the shelf, and you go, ding, Mina Lima, ding, Mina Lima, and they're attractive books, whatever else you want to say about them. And then you get to the 3rd one, and you're like, different producers, different everything. And it goes from being, again, from the original screenplay to the complete screenplay.
Yes.
They're acknowledging this is a transcription. I thought, oh, well, maybe somebody is listening. Maybe somebody is getting this. And then the fight about screenplay by J.K. Rowling and Steve Kloves. That's what put J.K. Rowling's name on the cover.
That's to sell the book. Yep.
And then it says, based upon a screenplay by J.K. Rowling, forward by David Yates, which is a 1-page nothing. Now that's that.
Well, there's a forward by David Yates. There's blocks of text in there from the principal actors, from the producer, from the directors. Not one from J.K. Rowling, and I would have sacrificed all of those for 3 good paragraphs from J.K. Rowling about what she thought about this film.
Yeah. Having David Heyman talk to me about the heart and Jacob being a full-hearted figure, he doesn't have any idea what the heart means. To him, it's a sentimental idea, or it's a grab bag Valentine's Day thing. When Rowling talks about the heart, it's de profundis. It is depth. It is what a human being turns on. It's their noetic spiritual capacity. Poof, nothing.
No.
Nothing.
There's a few things in there I thought were a little tongue in cheek. So again, I never picked up on it from the when I watched the film. I'm assuming I was thinking of something else, but I was stopped in my tracks when I discovered that this confusion I was feeling about what on earth was happening was actually a plot point. So we have Jacob, excuse me, I'm sorry, how do you confuse a guy who can see the future? Karma, countersight. Newt, exactly. The best plan being no plan. Lally, or many overlapping plans. Newt, thus confusion. Jacob, it's working on me right now.
That's gold, because that was the most cited passage by film reviewers, to say, good that at least you knew what all of us were experiencing.
Yeah.
That this film doesn't really make any sense at all. It's just excuses for wand battles and crazy things, and let's move this thing around. Again, we don't have Rowling's screenplay. No. She made that very clear, based upon a screenplay. So all of her connective material, it's gone.
Yes.
We don't. It's
there are some very visible hanging threads. So that weird absence of Tina. That is set up to be a plot point, and then just left. So there's knowing looks. Tina, she's got that new job. Knowing look, and then what? Nothing.
Well, nothing until the finish, and she appears on the street, and then they break up that conversation right away, and they go into the bakery.
Yeah.
So I mean, that to me was the author saying, if this is going to be the last film, and I'm going to talk about a second about why, in terms of its structure, we can say that this is the last film. That basically, because the actress Catherine Water something.
Oh,
I don't know her name.
Yeah. Well,
Tina Goldstein, extra.
Yeah.
As you said, she was very vocal in saying transgender women are women. Black is white, night is day, and Rowling wrote her out of the script. Rowling just said, I'm not gonna. You don't think that choices have consequences? I'm not going to fire you. I'm not going to make a counter announcement and make this ugly. But I'm sorry, Nick, that was just too obvious. She was a hallmark of the film, and all of a sudden she just disappeared.
Yeah.
I mean, the Newt romance angle is in the first film the hallmark. It's the whole
Yeah.
the Theseus, drama, not Theseus Commander, but Theseus is about Newt and Leda. And Hippolyta is Theseus's wife and Adam. So Leda, this
Yeah.
Leda is named for that, not Leda like Leda Strike and Leda and the Swans. And so, and she's a major role in the second film. That whole French Ministry of Magic scene and stuff like that, where they rediscover each other in the eyes of the salamander, and wow, this is a great thing. And then poof, she's gone.
Yeah.
She gets a picture inside his thing. She gets a cameo at the critical scene with the quill on the mountaintop in Baton, and then we get her appearance. I thought to myself, wow, if this were released today, we would say this was an AI. That she didn't even get to appear. She just walks in and goes inside the bakery. Bunty is a much bigger part of Newt's life in this film than Tina is. So I just thought, well, that's to me, it's fine. She didn't say, I'm not going to take away your employment, but as a creative, I don't have to feel obliged to put you inside this film.
No. And Queenie. So we have everyone's left confused after Crimes of Grindelwald. What there's Queenie's gone insane. How did Queenie go insane? And then that's explored a little bit in this film, and it's pretty much set up that she's a spy. Yeah, she's Dumbledore's woman on the inside. And I think, oh well, now we're gonna get a resolution to this. Now she's going to explain what she was doing there, how it happened, why it appeared like she went crazy. Nope, nothing.
Seriously, the idea that Queenie, as the greatest of all the Gillimans, I mean, she just has, she reads you like a book. That she was Dumbledore's plant inside Grindelwald's camp, it's just a fandom trope. I mean, it's just a gimme. But it turns out in the end that no, she really had gone to the dark side in order to, to marry Jacob. That she thought it was a better thing for her and Jacob. And, he leaves her at the end of Crimes of Grindelwald by not going through that fire with and as you say, the story is largely about Jacob Kowalski, and that's something I want to talk about. I mean, I left the hanging thread before we went into Lake and Shed and Kanreki and stuff like that. That one of the things that I just looking through the complete screenplay by Steve Kloves is there's a note by a guy that did CGI type props and stuff like that, where he explains the manticore, why the manticore attacks when that glowworm goes out. Now it's on the facing page of the text. There's nothing in the text to explain this. There's nothing in the film to explain why the manticore attacks when that glowworm goes out. I mean, and so they have to stuff in this thing from a prop guy. And I was again, what a hot mess. You just left to none of this stuff is really obvious. Oh well.
I have to mention I have to mention the Chillin. So the Chillin, this Chinese unicorn, as soon as the possibility of the Chillin came up, Beatrice Groves, we'll link it down below, wrote a wonderful post, three posts, in which she predicted essentially the final scene of the film, incredibly accurately. Just have a look at that. It was just, in retrospect, my mind blew all over again. Just how prescient that was.
Yeah, this was like me reading Lethal White beneath beneath on Dragon Mountain or whatever. You're just doing
the White Horse of Uppington. Yeah.
Is this really? There's B in the tea shop underneath the White Horse. I'm like, okay. Gosh. All right. I want to talk though about Nick that we may have, as tangential as we are to Fantastic Beast fandom, and there is a significant fandom. If you really want to know about Fantastic Beast things, Hogwarts Professor is really not your best source for that stuff. Which pains me to say, because usually I can say, look, if there's a top 10, posts on this work by J.K. Rowling, we've probably got 5 of those 10 posts. And I like to think certainly the top spot, we're gonna be one that really has the mind-blowing piece on it. Not for Secrets of Dumbledore. There's some good stuff there, and they're down below there. The link's down below. And there's a significant fandom on YouTube. There's a significant fandom at MuggleNet. They had their own podcast that went around Fantastic Beasts. And because there are so many things being dropped, weird pictures become the source of incredible speculation and research. And it's definitely a world. I mean, Nick, you don't even like film. I have as a Orthodox Christian and having trying to want an iconological perspective on things. This is borderline Aryan artistry. This is the kind of natural projection of things that is not understanding things portrayed in art as transparencies to greater realities. That's what art is supposed to be. It has to have an allegorical and anagogical meaning, but film by definition is a straightforward, even with CGI and AI and all those things, it's still a sensorial experience. You're supposed to feel it like you're watching something that is like you could watch anything, and that really is a diminishing aspect of the human person, because it cuts off the idea that art has this extra dimension, this really salutary, edifying function, again, for the transformation of soul and spirit. Now that's why I'm not a real film guy. I like film, but anyway, not our bailiwick, the screenplays. Not our thing. But last night, while I was watching the film, I come across the scene where Jacob gets his wand. And I'm going to read this to you, a very short passage. Newt says, "In fact, Dumbledore asked that I give you something, Jacob." The others stand by as Newt draws forth from his sleeve, a bit like an amateur magician, a wand. Newt says, "It's snakewood. It's somewhat rare." Whoa, Jacob is excited. Are you kidding me right now? Is this thing real? Now, if you watch the thing we just talked about in The Christmas Pig, real is a big thing to Rowling. Yeah, so he says, "Is this thing real?" It's italicized in the original. Newt says, "Well, yes. Well, it doesn't have a core, so sort of, but yes." Jacob, again italicized, "Sort of real?" Newt says, "More importantly, where we're going, you'll need it." Jacob takes the wand and stares at it in awe. Now, Lally makes Jacob's wand perform magic when he draws his wand to get Grindelwald to release Queenie. A tornado-like vortex comes out of his wand. Now, really, I don't think ever do we see it. More importantly, where we're going, you'll need it. We don't get any explanation for that. It's another one of these, plot chasms. Jacob, coming back from their adventure in Berlin, talk about confusing. There it was. He plays with it at Hogwarts over lunch, telling students that it's really Snakewood, again, the really thing, and he got it for Christmas. Jacob sits at a house table with a group of students. He is showing them his wand. A red-headed Ravenclaw says, "Is it really Snakewood?" Not italicized. Jacob, "Yes, it's really Snakewood." Now, I'm going to talk a minute about why they would ask this question. A tiny second-year witch leans close. Can I? She begins to reach out to the wand. Jacob, it's very dangerous. It's very powerful. It's rare. If it got in the wrong hands, it could mess you up. Witch, where did you get it? I got it for Christmas. Okay, now this is all good stuff. I think this is in the original screenplay. At story's end, Jacob asks if he can keep it. Dumbledore says he cannot think of anyone more deserving. All right, so Nick, I had my epiphany last night. I emailed you immediately to say, hey. I searched this morning. I tried to find out, if there was anything online about Snakewood. I mean, for example, Pottermore had a huge list of all the woods used for wands, and Snakewood is not part of it. But two things about this: Snakewood is the wand wood of Salazar Slytherin's wand. All right, that's a pretty big deal, right? Yeah. That's a pretty big deal. And Snakewood, it kind of makes sense, right? Snakewood, right?
Wood snake.
Well, you jumped the gun there. I was thinking of snake like in Slytherin,
Okay.
But it's that this is the Slytherin. It also has an American thing because the Isolde Sayre, the founder of Ilvermorny, she has Salazar Slytherin's wand, and she has issues with that, and they're the most egalitarian of the wizarding schools. It doesn't really have a Slytherin house. It has that river snake thing. Anyway, she buries the wand and it grows into a tree. It can't be pruned and it can't be cut down, and it has healing properties. Forgive me, I think that was Rowling saying that basically the Puritans were Salazar Slytherin. Basically that they were the people that were expelled from the UK in the Civil War. They were the radical Reformation things, and they went to the United States and got planted there, and it grew into a tree that couldn't be pruned or cut down. You couldn't kill this damn thing, but it had healing properties. If there's something, it's the most egalitarian of all the wizarding schools. It doesn't have this poison of caste and class. We certainly have caste and class in the United States, but not like in the UK. And so it was an interesting comment there. But why Snakewood? Now, the Snakewood thing, it works with Slytherin because of the whole serpent, the whole sibilant, alliteration in his name, and the fact that the serpent is always in his symbolism. But then you have that moment where you're like, oh, Jacob Kowalski's initials are JK, and he's given the Snakewood wand. Now, is that because he's an American, right? So he gets this American wood wand, and it's kind of a touch to Ilvermorny, which is one of the more embarrassing things in Rowling's canon. And she got that was when she was originally canceled because of all the appropriation from Native American folklore and such. There's always been the conversation about why Jacob Kowalski. That he's this muggle embedded in the story, and other than comedy, it's kind of a Keystone Cop comedy element that he adds to the story. What is he there for? There's no equivalent in the Harry Potter books. There's some squibs, but there's no Kowalski type figure. The assumption has been, in a way, this was Rowling's commentary, that she's the muggle inside the story, hence the JK symbolism. And she gives him the Snakewood wand. Now that, because Nick and I were doing all this stuff about the Kanreki and laughing that she's a wood snake, and how amazing she didn't make. I made forgive me, a kind of crass joke about why we didn't get a phallic image thing about Snakewood. That this was. She makes all sorts of wand phallus jokes in her interviews especially around Twilight. I could have done a lot more with wands, and made it sexualize the series, whatever. Why didn't we get, when she's a wood snake, why didn't we get, in effect, a snakewood wand, snakewood, there we go. And Nick, if you go back to that, whenever I first talked about that, Nick immediately changed the conversation. We're away from this. Well, turns out, Nick, as you know, she did put her wood snake inside the story, and she gave it to the JK character, that snakewood wand. Now, why it has no wand core? That's fascinating. I think it's because of the wand cores that Ollivander uses. You're gonna have to help me out here, because I was blown. There's dragon's heartstring.
Yeah.
There's unicorn hair.
Yes.
And there's
Phoenix
feather. Okay. All three of those in it, like dragon's blood is a symbol of the Eucharist in alchemy. The unicorn is a symbol of Christ, the hair, and the phoenix, the resurrection bird. Also, that basically the wand cores have their magic because of this logos interior that's exteriorized in magic. Okay, when you have a magical person who is this logos capable person, all this is done by speech. The logos. It's not reasonable. That all makes sense. But then Jacob gets a thing without a wand core. Now, why would Dumbledore give him a wand without a wand core? It's not as if he's magic and he can suddenly use the thing. Is it because he expects it's going to be taken? He doesn't want a witch or wizard to be able to use it. And again, the Snakewood thing, is it the touch of Salazar Slytherin, so that some wizards will be kind of spooked by it? Like, ooh, that's a spooky wood. It's like the yew tree and the elder wand thing. It's like, that's a pretty unusual thing. I think it's because of the heart thing. And I'll talk about that in just 1 second. I'm doing. Have you already done your shed thing, Nick? Your lake thing?
My lake. Yeah, but yeah, pretty much. So I think I'd have to know a lot more about Steve Kloves' life for me to pull anything for the lake on this film with any degree of confidence.
Okay, so I'm going to go into crazy shed speculation. I'm not part of Beast fandom. I'm not a film guy. So again, if all this stuff was explored years and years ago, even before the film came out, like Beatrice gave us the Quilm story before we got the film. Forgive me if this. I get emails to this day, Nick, where people say, "Do you know if you look at the Mirror of Erised and you read that backwards, that it has a message?" They write to me because I'm that guy, right? And they want to let me know that they found something, and I'm like, wow, that's so sad. It's nice that they had that thrill of discovery. Yeah. But when they talk to anybody about it, or they read any of the books, and it's taken as a given that you understand that the message reads backwards, they're going to feel kind of embarrassed, like, oh, everybody already knew that. So if you're out there waiting to say, hey, John, here's the link to this person and this person and this person, talking about, the wood snake Chinese thing, and the fact that we do the Chinese subject in Secrets of Dumbledore, hey, welcome, way to go, John, good job. I get that, all right, but let me enjoy my, woo, we got something. Right? First of all, I want to make just the obvious connections between Jacob Kowalski, JK, and JKR. First, there's the French background. Yes, he's an American, which is to say he's kind of an oddball. He makes the comment about how he has this relationship with wizards, and they're just like this. And he wiggles his thumb and goes, and that's me. Those are my wizard friends. Now he clearly is talking to these Ravenclaws as a Muggle, and they're like looking at him. This is kind of wow, we got a Muggle at Hogwarts, and he's doing the thing. Hey, this is a school for wizards. It's really one of the best scenes. I'm no fan of that actor's politics, but I mean he's really good as Jacob. I really enjoy him. First, he's a veteran too, and we know that Rowling likes veterans. Um, some of her best friends are veterans. And he he stayed in France after the war because he didn't know the war had ended. I thought that was kind of a comic thing, And he goes to Poland, he gets his friends, gets some recipes, he goes back to New York, and there he finds that he has to work a bad job. He can't do the thing. He's a creative. He wants to be a baker, and he has this encounter with magical people, and all of a sudden everything comes true in it. And that's a pretty solid, JKR thing. Then there's the fact that he likes to bake. Nick, I think this is a lake point, isn't that?
Yeah.
If Rowling does one thing in the kitchen, it's bake.
Yes. Yeah. So when she's very eager to impress with her mothering skills, what she does is bake. So we get a shot of her in the documentary A Year in the Life, of her baking a cake for her son. Interestingly, not Harry Potter themed. So there's a Disney Pixar film about cars, and that's at that point that's what David is obsessed with. But yeah, so she's never really boasted about her cookery skills, but she does say she can bake.
Okay. So, and how does Jacob bake? He has these repressed memories that come from his unconscious mind, and he remembers all these fantastic beasts, and it's a real hit. Well, that's a Lake reference, isn't it? That basically JK and JKR have that in common, that she knows her whole metaphor is that these things come from her repressed memories, her unresolved issues, her, this stuff inside her she doesn't understand. And people really love it, the way she forms it into a creation. And then the shed, that's the bakery. That's the place where he's actually baking. Right? There's the poor person elevated by the relation to the wizards. There's something about the unequally yoked in relationship thing and the queer kind of things, and this would be Neil Murray as Jacob Kowalski, that he's, Queenie then would be the embedded JKR that, she kind of goes to the dark side sometimes. But Jacob stays solid. Jacob stays on thing, even though he's the lesser person, lesser public figure, let's say, than Queenie is, doesn't have any of her, out of this world skills. But he grounds her, he understands her, and she loves his pure heart. That would make Neil Murray into that. But let's see Queenie and Jacob as a unit, the JKR, thing there. Again, this is the gender issue portrayed on the screen, is that Jacob, in effect, is playing the woman's role, sort of. He's not the big power. He's the weak figure on the stage that has to be rescued. But he has his own kind of bravery. And that's where we get his full heart thing. And I've got to actually find these references. Let me put on my Harry Potter glasses here, right? My circular glasses here. And he says, Dumbledore says to him, he's about to abandon him, and Dumbledore's about to leave Jacob in Baton. He says, "You don't have the Quillen. Feel free to drop the case at the first hint of trouble." And then he stops. "One other thing, if you don't mind me saying." Wow. To have Dumbledore say that to you, oh my goodness, here we go. The wise man is about to drop the bomb. You should stop doubting yourself. You have something most men go their entire lives without. Do you know what that is? Jacob, good playing to form, shakes his head. Yeah, not to interrupt the flow here. Please tell me what this is. You have a heart that is full. Only a truly brave man could open himself up so honestly and completely, period, as you do, period. Now, if Rowling is the embedded author here, the JK is JKR. I think she has Dumbledore, who's, Rowling, he says, is basically her elevated conscious mind, is the wise man of the series. She's talking about herself here on this movie set. That she's saying that you've opened yourself up so honestly and completely. I mean, in fact, you've made yourself as absolutely vulnerable as you can possibly do because you're truly brave, because of your full heart. Now, the Quillen doesn't bow to Jacob Kowalski, but he might. Because in that scene on the top of the mountain, he's crucified. He's hit with the Crucio curse, and then the Aurelius Dumbledore, the golden one, the alchemical golden one, states the truth, stands for what's real against the Dark Lord, against Grindelwald. And the Quillen is then revealed. Bunty, as a nun, a Buddhist nun, comes up and gives the case to Newt. Says you never really know these things. They never know, that they didn't look for the nun. She was the invisible person in Bhutan, and she gives the. She's the woman, and if she's not a nun, she's in near full burqa.
Yeah.
And she gives the case to Newt, and the Quillen comes out, and the Quillen, again, read Beatrice Grove's pieces, but anybody just watching the film sees that it glows. Literally, its heart is light when it's in the presence of a person with a pure heart. And the false Quillen bows, but doesn't light up in front of Grindelwald. Here, the Quillen goes to Dumbledore. He balks, thanks the thing, very respectful to the Quillen. He sees it as essentially an angel. This is a messenger, right? And it's a revelation. He's an alchemist. He recognizes this illumined heart inside the Quillen and what that is. That's essentially a Christ figure. And then she goes to Sanctus, whose name means the Holy One. It's from the Latin sanctus. It's the saint is saying it, and of course it's a woman. It's the divine woman who becomes the leader of all the wizarding world. Wow, that was. Jacob's full heart is the same thing. He's the suffering one of the cross. He takes the blow so that this story can be told. To me, that's Rowling embedding herself inside the story, saying, you know what? Just to have this image and this medieval morality play act out again on top of this temple, I'm going to have this full-hearted guy, a wood snake wand-holding guy, with no wand core, because he is the wand core. He is that Logos Christ thing. He has that divinatory thing. Fascinating thing to me. The bad news, Nick, is I think that's the end of the series as in terms of Rowling's involvement. The very, very first scene, really one of the very first scenes in the first film, is Jacob breaking up with Mildred on the street, where she basically says, you couldn't get the loan for the bakery, you're a loser, it's nothing that I want. I think is it in the deleted scenes? We actually have the film. Whether we have it or not, it's been testified to by everybody involved in the story. And they cut that out, which of course kills the finish. That's supposed to be one of the latches that really ties this film up. It's part of Rowling's ring artistry, and that got cut. So when the goodbye, when Queenie comes back into the bakery at the finish, and you're like, oh, this is the tight close to that thing. We definitely get that again. That scene, Jacob imagines that scene again. He imagines better. He's a broken man, but he imagines Queenie inside his bakery early on in the third film before Lally comes. That, the end of the film is the marriage of Jacob and Queenie. And I think Rowling has basically said, okay, A, Jacob and Queenie in Fantastic Beasts 1, B is Crimes of Grindelwald, they break up, and then A, Prime, is this three-step ring. They're married. They reconcile and they're married. We don't get the Tina thing. because Tina and Newt don't get a story. Even though Newt says to Dumbledore, I'd be happy if the story would go on.
Yeah.
I think that was a plea from Steve Kloves to J.K. Rowling. I'd love to do another one of these. And Dumbledore just smiles and walks off like, ain't happening, brother. There ain't going to be any more of these. I have to go off to fight Grindelwald by myself off stage. Oh, well, I do think that Rowling has embedded herself inside that script, and it's largely about the trans battle. Is that just totally ludicrous, Nick?
No, I don't think it can be. I think even if it's not done consciously, if she's still pulling out of that lake post December 2019, gender's going to be in there. It's got to be such a large part of her consciousness now, and I'm sure she's fighting it because she doesn't want to be that person that is sort of the single issue, and she isn't the single issue in her writing, but it's got to be in the soup somewhere.
Yeah. Again, why Kowalski's in there other than for comic effect. There's plenty of comedy in the Harry Potter movies and Harry Potter stories without a Muggle. That she throws him in there, I think was she says she doesn't do cameos. She's too self-conscious to sit on a film set. She calls it corpsing. I don't know if that means corpsing.
No, corpsing is inappropriate giggling. So if you can't stop laughing, or
okay, well, she's afraid she'll do that on set.
Yeah.
But I think she does it inside her books. I think we get Trelawney as the crazy French teacher. That was Rowling. And she's the person who has the prophecy, which is the backdrop to the entire series. I mean, it makes sense, Trelawney and Rowling, especially the astrologer, the wingnut astrologer with the tarot cards. I mean, that to me is a fun thing. We get Catherine Kent inside the Silkworm. That's a lot harsher and sharper thing. That's more like Lula Landry's fear. She has a relationship with Rochelle Antefati because she's like, if I weren't pretty, that would be me. And so she tries to take care of Rochelle. Catherine Kent, in a way, I think is Rowling's looking at, if she really didn't have this phenomenal writing skill, but she still wanted to write, she would be Catherine Kent.
Yeah.
Just a pathetic woman living on the periphery. With a trans partner, basically. I mean, she has these gender issues herself. She's admitted that she's. It's like Camille Paglia saying that if she grew up today, she definitely would have been exploring. She'd have felt compelled to do the hormone therapies in transition. And Rowling said pretty much the same thing, that she grew up, very uncomfortable with her identity as a woman. So I got a lot more out of that film and that screenplay than I thought I was going to get, especially the heart piece. That's such a central point of what Rowling is about, is the heart.
I think when you reminded me, because I was getting excited because I thought we had another book coming, and you reminded me on the last episode, no, it's Fantastic Beasts. And I'm sure the people that made it through that show saw my face drop. Oh, another film. But I have to say, I got a lot more out of reading the script than my memories of watching the film. I don't know if I'm going to watch the film again, but I could see me reading the script again.
I mean, I have blind spots in my, or I don't know, blind spots. I mean, my work on Troubled Blood, my work on Christmas Pig, my work on Deathly Hallows, I don't blush about that work, Nick. That's in terms of Rowling studies. Maybe you can laugh at the field, but in terms of that work and the perennialist aspect of that work, if I'm not proud of that, I don't blush at that. I don't say, gosh, I was wasting my time. But some books I just never really got my head around. And certainly cursed all the ones that are peripheral, the Cursed Child stuff and the Fantastic Beasts films. But I think I'm willing to acknowledge, Rowling's magic, it's in there. It's in there. you just have to mine a lot deeper, and you can never really be sure if it's fool's gold or the real thing. Does Steve Kloves just know her stuff well enough to to make to throw those things in there? Again, until we get those original the shooting script screenplays, or until Rowling writes these things up. I hope so much that she's got these.
We need to start this petition, John. We need to start this petition. I don't know how many million signatures we need, but there's a story in there that needs to be told.
Yeah, oh well. I think she's going to wait until all the actors have aged out of their possible, playing those parts. That just like she's not writing parts for Emma and Rupert and Daniel, she's not writing any parts for the actors playing Tina and Queenie and especially Newt threw her under the bus. So segue to the next book, Nick, that I'm really pretty weak on.
Yeah.
Right?
So this is we have Ink Black Heart coming up. So it's a proper book with covers and everything.
Her name on the cover as the author.
Yeah, and no doubt at all about who wrote this. So I'm pretty excited about this. This is pretty lake heavy from my side. So I've got lots to talk about, I think, with the lake. So this is her relationship with the fandom, with youth culture, with the online community. This is her struggle as a young writer. I think there's a lot to talk about in this book.
Yeah, when we've talked about this on the back channels, and I think even here, I usually say that there are 3 books that the lake side of Rowling studies need to focus on and really get their legs underneath them. The first one and the primary one is Casual Vacancy. Christmas Pig, for me especially, because the author has acknowledged right out this is these connections are intentional, but also because the shed artistry is so heavy inside Christmas Pig that you see a real lake shed integer, and you can't do one without the other. But forgive me, the shed is much more important in terms of really grasping the power of that story. And then there's Ink Black Heart. And Ink Black Heart, and we'll talk about this in our next, when we come back tomorrow. Fascinating intersection again of Rowling's lake molten glass, her claims about, she denies this, Nick. She denies that she's writing about, current events. And then the shed artistry. For me, the shed side of Ink Black Heart is, I don't know, what I want to do, I guess, is offer a class on Ink Black Heart so that I can attend the class. There's so much work to be done on Ink Black Heart that hasn't been done. And I'm going to talk about, the very weird feeling I had while reading Ink Black Heart at a very strange time of my life. And then the things that have to be done that haven't been done in Rowling studies around Ink Black Heart. If you want to sign up for that class, just say in the comments below, and we'll, Nick and I will do an adventure here via Teams, and you can all attend, and we'll just, and there'll be homework and tests, right, Nick? Maybe paper. Maybe, you do get 10 extra credit points if you were born in the year of a wood snake. That's.
And your initials are JKR. I think you get a flat pass, don't you?
Straight up. No fail. No fail in there. Nick, I confess I was dreading the Fantastic Beasts 3, the Secrets of Dumbledore. But that was fun.
I got a lot more enjoyment than I was expecting, and there's a lot more in there to find actually than I was expecting to find as well. But I will.
That's the embarrassing thing for me is I was stupid movies, and then thrilled to see all these these wonderful stuff that's in there. All right. Ink Black Heart.
I'll see you
Next.
tomorrow, John.
Take care.